would love to see you, even on stage. Ready? Because you're humble. Does this get in the way of what we were told? I think so, in some ways. Because you don't have an agenda when you're humble, and you don't make people feel that that you want something from them. You're genuine, and you care, and they want to see you. It's on and on. You could go on. It gets in the way of this odd linear idea that you can only be one thing or the other, humble or not, on stage or not, and all of that starts to fall apart under what we'll call spiritual logic. We're magnificent. Lindy, you are magnificent. You're humble in that magnificence. Perhaps, just perhaps, it's your humility and your loving presence that actually make you humble. Think about it.
Thank you, Lee. That's a beautiful answer, and I truly hope that those who do feel a little difficult to sit on that stage to be honoured can just feel us with you in that moment, because you are magnificent. It's true. And you can be humble and magnificent all at the same time. Our next question comes from Merceda. Merceda is in Iran and is asking, I heard that we can ask to stop having karma and then we will lose our guides for 90 days. Is it different at this time, and how? I think Merceda might be referring to some of the earlier teachings Kryon gave.
Very much so. In fact, very early, back in 1993. It's kind of a consolidated question from 30 years ago when the energy was very different. Yeah. Yes, indeed, things have changed. First, the idea of changing karma has been with us a long time ago, so that's not a Kryon thing at all. Many belief systems on the planet not only believe in karma, but they also believe you can change it. Hindus, for instance, they trek to Varanasi, hopefully change the outcome of their next lives with their karma. As the belief goes, karma is something we create. It's a cause and effect system. Kryon addressed this very early on in 1993, as I said, in book number 1, and told us that it was time to drop the idea that this past life energy would follow you all through your life. It's a new energy. We have more control than we did then. That's the belief. And so it's time to accept that we can change it. So it's not all that different from other belief systems who believe they could change it, but perhaps not this life. So back then he invited us to declare that we're done with it. And we did, and I did. And we did, all of us around us, and then expect changes right away. So back then, there was what Kryon said, that the process might create a dark time, what he called it, about 90-day period, almost like a reboot of our thinking. Again, that was 30 years ago. The energy was really different back there, folks. Really did. This was, and Kryon even described it as losing a time when you would feel like you were losing your guides. Now, does it make any sense to make a big spiritual decision, go into a new awareness and feel a dark night of the soul? And people will say that doesn't make any sense. Oh, yes, it does. If you're a Christian, you might remember what Christ did on the cross and what he said and what they quoted. And many times they said, "Why have you forsaken me?" And so this is exactly what it is. He's about to make a tremendous change, I would think, in his dimensionality. And there's a time where things retreat from him so it can come back. And it was the same thing as Kryon said when we started to make those kinds of decisions for ourselves. Now, the actual fact is that we don't lose our guides. We never lose them. And Kryon has talked about this before. They're the same forever. They're the same every life. So what Kryon made a joke. He said it's almost like they went in the other room for a while and they changed clothes and you didn't recognize them. So they come back and, of course, everything is new. It's awakening to a grander truth in this way. It's like someone turned on the light in a dark room in your life, and suddenly you get to see things in your life you never saw before. So the process of dropping past life energy is way different in this new energy than it was back then, and now people are doing it almost automatically without any feeling of loss at all. This is the new energy we're in. It's also why Kryon never speaks of that anymore.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lee, and I hope that has helped anyone else who had that same question. We have Maria from Jakarta in Indonesia. Maria is saying, you mentioned we can create ceremonies in our own way. I respect the ancient ceremony, but prefer adapting it into a modern way. Can you give me your advice on the example of a new approach to a ceremony? This is a beautiful question because we're kind of in the holiday season where we have many ceremonies.
We have our own ceremony. We give gifts to each other
yes.
and honor one another. But that it's not the spiritual ceremony that she's talking about. I don't think. So, Maria, let me just give you some things. Ceremony really, truly, in my opinion, exists for one reason. It's to keep us involved in whatever truth we're working on, practice it over and over, honor whatever it is we want to honor. So it's really for us. Ceremonies are, I think, very, very personal. For some beliefs, it's also to make certain everyone remembers what they believe together and to keep the faith. How many of you counted bees in church? Don't answer. I'll wait. I'll wait for a non-answer. Do you think the creator of the universe was making certain you were doing it correctly? The answer, I believe, is no. It was more to remind you of your faith and the institution you were in, but I don't think God was counting the beads with you. I think it was more of a ceremony. That's a ceremony. So, you can change to anything you want to in ceremony as long as you keep the same sacred rules and intent there. That's my belief. We've been around the world. We've seen ceremonies and ceremonies and ceremonies by not just the indigenous, but a whole lot of them. And they're very similar to the intent. They're just very, very different in what they do. So ceremony for us is to help us to continue to remember what's important to us and to honor the energies that we feel are important. Now, the ancients used what they could in their culture. They had more time than we did, of course. But I don't believe there's real sacredness in the actual rituals that they did. It's more important to keep the intent of why they were doing it and to keep them the same if you want to. And that's where the sacredness is. Again, it's in our own consciousness and it's in our own intent. For instance, American Indians, they may have smoked a pipe in their culture, you all know. But if you do something different but honor the same things they did for the same reasons, and you just exchange the pipe for something that made sense to you today, I think they would be the same kind of a thing, and you'd be honored in the same way. How about you make a little altar, perhaps somewhere in your home, and spend 5 minutes before bed thanking Spirit for loving you? Something as simple as this. Or perhaps you're in the country when you can go outside for 5 minutes a night and raise your hands to Gaia, to the sky, and thank for the wonderful things that it gives to us. And you can start listing them. That's ceremony, and you can do it every day. It doesn't take that long. Perhaps you can practice compassionate action every day and give love and peaceful energy to all those who are suffering. That's a form of ceremony, and it's the intent of what you do and the compassion that makes all the difference. Every one of these things is a kind of ceremony and can be done each day. It keeps us remembering our place here on the planet, and like the ancients, it gives honor to the elements and to the earth as well.
I love everything you just described in that, and there is no limit to the kind of ceremonies you can incorporate and introduce into your life. Spirit sees your intent, and you create your own sacred rules for you. So let's now move into a meditation. And I'd like to again thank Robert Coxon for the beautiful, divine music that he has brought to the planet. And in particular, we are blessed to have Robert's music with us for this month in the Healing Wednesday. And so I invite you to close your eyes and take a moment to think about all the ancestors that have come before you. You may even wish to create a ceremony where you light a candle that represents you. And then you may place 2 candles in a row above you that represents your mother and father. And then you may place 4 candles to represent your grandparents. And then you may place 8 candles that represent your great-grandparents. And you can keep going with more ancestors, or you can simply leave it as those. And as you've light each candle, think about the journey they have been on. And in your ceremony, you can then acknowledge each candle, each ancestor, thank them, and blow out the candle one by one until you return to your own candle and have that candle stay lit. And just give gratitude and thanks for every ancestor that's come before you. They are with you now in the most extraordinary time on the planet, the time of the great shift. And let all the wisdom and knowledge of your ancestors pour through into you. And so there is nothing more to do, simply the acknowledgement that you are here, your life matters, your very existence on the planet is sacred and blessed. And with this gratitude and acknowledgement of the sacred place we are in, we can now receive the message from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. You've been following the channelings of this month. It's about family. A fitting for a holiday season, family in another word, reincarnation. We've given many facts, some known by you from channelings in the past and some are new. But they're about a process, if you wish to call it that, a system, if you wish to call it that, where one soul continues to come to this planet in different expressions. The expression is the word that many would use for the human form that you take through the soul that you are. We've described a little bit about the history. We've described some of what takes place in the gender switching and how often it happens. We've talked about so many aspects. We've told you that there is a system within this planet that is specific and different from other planets. We've told you that there is a timing difference depending upon your awareness of what an old soul may or may not be, and that all influences the time it takes, the form that it receives and then sends for reincarnation. When I mean the form, I mean by this. When you go to the other side and you've had 1 or 2 lifetimes on this planet, it's far, far different, as we were remarking, than an old soul which may have been here hundreds of times. We equated a reincarnate system to a school of earth, that an old soul has been through lifetime after lifetime, lesson, expression, to get to a place where they are more aware, more knowledgeable of how things work. That puts them in another place when it comes to the soul planning